Hey everybody, Sid from Cool Movie Grab, your source for everything about cool movies. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and check out my other videos, and just let me know what you think. Okay, anyways, today is finally doing another installment for my top 50 action movies of all time. This part covering films 15 to 11. So of course now after this is going to be the top 10, and there's only a couple of more videos to go. This is part 8, I think it is, yeah. See, I've lost count. That's just how long it's been. Oh no, finally now I can actually try and get more, do maybe other videos that I'd actually planned to have done, and hopefully get more content put out as well. So so without further ado, no more small chit chat, so I'm just going to be going from starting down the countdown. That's it. So that's it. Now let's just get on with it. Number 15 is The Man from Nowhere, 2010, starring Won Bin, Kim Se-ron, and Kim Hee-won. It's a 2010 movie from South Korea directed by Lee Jung-bum. It's about a man who lives a quiet existence, makes friends with a young child, and when this child is taken, and the man himself, who happens to have a background in the Secret Service for South Korea, and uses his skills in order to uncover the ring of organ donors that's taking place on the black market, as well as saving this only friend that he has. And he kind of delves into the past of this man and the reason why he is like he is today, and you kind of get to learn about this person and his motives and his motivation. And throughout the film there's just it's a kind of really dark, tense feeling to it. There's some amazing action sequences. The fight sequences are done absolutely amazing. I mean, there are some great response videos on YouTube showing how accurate some of these knife fighting scenes were, and how kind of intricate the choreography is. And it just looks absolutely amazing. I mean, I would say this is like a version of Taken that's like maybe 10 times better. The Won Bin just does great work as the lead role. I mean, he just kind of immerses himself into the character, which kind of makes it more easy for you to kind of believe and follow this person and kind of root for him. And it's just put together in such an amazing way. And again, Lee Jung-bum does great work as a director. The cinematography is just stellar, like in nearly most South Korean films that I've seen. I mean, the cinematography in this film is absolutely incredible. It's just really well made, really well shot. The music score, again, it's haunting, it's deep, and it kind of gets really emotive at the time. But all the the deep kind of underlying themes of like loss, regret, and sadness, it doesn't take away from it being a kick-ass action movie, and it kind of just packages everything into just this finely created kind of like orchestra of like emotions, action, violence, and just stunning visuals throughout. And I would say definitely one of the best like action movies to come from South Korea, without doubt, definitely. And I would say definitely, if you haven't seen this movie, check it out. It was on Netflix for quite a while. I'm sure it was on Amazon Prime. It's just been around for quite some time now, but definitely I would say one of the most intriguing action thrillers from the past decade. I would say definitely this is just one of those films you have to see. It's just that it is that amazing. I mean, I didn't think much of it first when people were telling me about it. They said that it's really good, but then I thought, the movie hyped up that much, could it really be worthy of such a high status, such a high kind of like, is it worth the actual, worth the time watching. But then when I watched it, I thought, wow, this is actually an amazing film. It's not too complex. It's not too overwritten. It's not too kind of like it's not too complicated or anything at all. It's just unadulterated. It's a great story, a great character, and it's just full on badass action as well. So definitely check this movie out. I mean, if you haven't seen it, if you have, then you know what I'm talking about. This movie is just absolutely balls to the wall, crazy, insane carnage. Number 14 is A Better Tomorrow from 1986, Hong Kong, directed by John Woo, starring Chow Yun-fat, T. Leung, Leslie Chung Weasley, and Emily Chu. What can I say about this film? I mean, I would say probably one of my most important, favorite movies from Hong Kong of all time. Stars T. Leung as a man, Kung Ji Ho, who's working for a criminal organization alongside his best friend Mark, played by the charismatic Chow Yun-fat. Now, Sung Ji Ho wants to break free from the criminal lifestyle because his younger brother Kit, played by the late Leslie Chung, is graduating from the police academy, and he's thinking that maybe it's time to just give up the life of crime and leave the triad and just go straight. But a twist of fate lands the older brother Ho in jail, and his best friend Mark goes for revenge, ends up crippled, and then 3 years later, when coming out of prison, finds out that his brother does not want to see him after the death of their father, feeling that the older brother was kind of responsible for. So that kind of creates a wedge between the two brothers, and his best friend Mark, who's now a low-level, not even a crook anymore, just a servant, just living a very kind of menial lifestyle. Whereas their former driver, brother Singh, now is Boss Singh, who's in charge of the triad, and he's kind of taken charge of the whole counterfeit organization, and who feels that the arrival of Sung Ji Ho from prison is kind of a threat. It's best to kind of pacify it, whereas Sung Ji Ho kind of wants to go straight, and he wants to kind of have nothing to do, so he ends up getting a job as a taxi driver. But his past keeps on catching up with him, and eventually leaving the three men in a crossfire. Look, I mean, this film was a game changer when it came out from Hong Kong. I mean, of course, it was very much inspired by a previous Hong Kong movie made back in the 60s, a black and white one called Story of a Discharged Prisoner, which shared the same Chinese title as A Better Tomorrow, which was True Colors of the Hero, which is about a man who comes out of prison, was formerly a part of the triad, but wants to go straight, but then he has to save his brother, who's kind of being targeted by these same triads, and he can't get rid of that kind of stigma of his past and try to kind of do his bit for society. But John Woo kind of took that kind of element and then just kind of modernized it. I mean, bearing in mind it was made at a time when old school kung fu movies had actually had their run, and Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung, they were the top dogs of Hong Kong action filmmaking. I mean, John Woo had already done a couple of movies which either were really broad comedies, and he'd done a couple of martial arts movies. But what he did was he actually kind of created this kind of world where it was set amongst the triad, but they had this kind of code and the themes of loyalty and brotherhood and morals and doing the right thing. And it's something that we always saw in a lot of these stories about swordsmen, these swordplay stories that were being made, but it's kind of transferred to modern day Hong Kong, which was in the 80s, where instead of fancy costumes and swords and weapons and martial arts weaponry, it was pretty much wearing slick designer suits, driving around in expensive cars, and also instead of the swords for weapons, they had guns. And the fight, the shootouts are again shot with absolute kind of like precision in terms of like the sound design, the set design, the cinematography by veteran cinematographer Wang Ming-Han, who's always been a frequent collaborator with John Woo on many of his films. Captured it great. I mean, there are a few action sequences that are peppered out throughout the film, and just full of high octane, a lot of explosions, loud gunfire, blood squibs popping everywhere, and again just the slick editing and the cinematography, again the use of the late Joseph Ku's amazing music score. It's a work of full mastery. I mean, which got the best film and award at the Hong Kong Film Awards for the following year, and also landed Chow Yun-fat his Best Actor award. And this kind of like propelled his career. I mean, it propelled many people's career. I mean, John Woo, who was kind of like a successful, sometimes not so successful kind of director who kind of made this really big, groundbreaking hit. So it kind of propelled him into like a different world, which kind of led to him making like masterpieces such as The Killer, Hard Boiled, Bullet in the Head and whatnot, and then kind of transitioning on to Hollywood. And then Chow Yun-fat, who is a very successful TV star, who was given this shot in a role that was originally written for an already established actor, Danny Lee, who was the co-star in John Woo's The Killer, and also T. Lung, who had actually gone into semi-retirement, thinking that his career is not going anywhere after the whole kind of like popularity of kung fu movies had actually waned away. I mean, especially since the Shaw Brothers studio was kind of like at that time was focusing more on the TV side of things, and this kind of propelled their careers. And we also had Leslie Chung, who was kind of like rising up as a really popular, famous singer and becoming a bona fide leading man. I mean, so this kind of did wonders for all their careers, and it kind of broke new ground for making action movies with more than just kind of like modern day action movies, but also at the same time just serious crime thrillers, which also kind of garnered to a lot of kind of international audiences and found people all across the world finding out who John Woo was and knowing about Chow Yun-fat and the people involved, and making these just classic after classic. And again, this film itself it's I would say one of John Woo's masterpieces. Number 13, we have The Matrix, 1999, US film directed by the Wachowski brothers, starring Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, Carrie-Anne Moss, and Hugo Weaving. Thomas Anderson is a man who's living a very quiet existence, working a menial job for a IT firm as a programmer. But nothing always seems what it is. And he is introduced to a man named Morpheus, who's wanted by the authorities. Whereas he operates as a hacker named Neo on the side, providing illegal software to a lot of people. But then eventually it kind of follows the chain of events that lead him to go into this different society of like these people who know the truth about the reality, what is the Matrix. And he finds out that eventually it was all a computer program created by machines who had actually taken over once they became more sentient and realized that humans are a great source of power. So humans were bred. So then it's time for Thomas Anderson, who's now known as Neo, taking his hacker name, to join Morpheus and Trinity, played by Carrie-Anne Moss, and their crew to actually bring down this system and free the human race. Well, The Matrix, again, it's a great action movie. It's a brilliant action movie, the original. We're not talking about the subsequent sequels, which I personally did not really think they were that great at all. But the original itself, it was a game changer. It was kind of something that made it one of the best science fiction movies. I mean, the whole premise of it. I mean, although we have seen the whole artificial intelligence kind of like taking over and fighting back. We've seen that kind of happen before in films like The Terminator, but this time around it was kind of different. The fact that it kind of like it dealt with it on a more societal structure, whereas you kind of see how like the masses were being controlled by this kind of like this entity, this higher power, where that is kind of enslaved, where the people who are running it, the machines are running it, are kind of like keeping the system in order. Whereas you see how this person, really literally Neo, just kind of like embarks on a journey to put this system down and free the people. And at the same time, I mean, the visuals are great. I mean, it fills itself with a lot of action, inspired a lot by Japanese animation as well as Hong Kong cinema. I mean, you took like elements of martial arts, again, hiring someone like Yuen Wu-ping to actually direct the martial arts action sequences, and even the shootouts and the revolutionary bullet time, again, inspired a lot by John Woo. I mean, itself, for example, like the previous movie, A Better Tomorrow, I mean, the lobby shootout, even at the start of it, was pretty much inspired by the tea house shootout from A Better Tomorrow. The way that Keanu Reeves literally just kind of like pushes the guy and just kills two people on the side with two guns. And, also just running through, slow-mo, wearing black glasses, long overcoat, and just shooting two guns. I mean, that is John Woo. That's classic John Woo kind of like material right there. And again, I mean, the choreography is very similar to what you would see in a lot of probably like a Jet Li movie and whatnot. But this film, again, it was a game changer. It kind of like people writing theses and dissertations based upon the Matrix and like all the themes. For example, you had a capitalist, society, enslaving the working class, and kind of like someone fighting back. I mean, it was pretty much very kind of like had a different kind of like left-wing politics kind of feel to it, and at the same time, it was just made for great, thrilling, classic martial arts action, and everything was just so on point. I mean, Hugo Weaving again was amazing as like a computer program known as an agent who kind of like takes care of people rebelling against the system. And at the same time, Lawrence Fishburne as Morpheus was absolutely incredible. And this is why, I mean, even though the sequels were not as great as they could have been, but the original is still by far probably one of the greatest movies ever made. And that's why it kind of still brings up a lot of discussion. I mean, it is a classic. And personally, I don't think the Wachowski sisters, as they're known as now, I don't think anything that they make is ever going to have that kind of an effect. I mean, in a way, that's kind of like, it's like a great filmmaker's curse. Sometimes they make something so brilliant, and sometimes it's just hard because you try and spend your whole career trying to kind of top up, outdo something that you had done before, but you just don't seem to kind of like catch up on it. And it is one of those movies you're unable to do. Number 12 is The Raid, an Indonesian film directed by Welshman Gareth Evans, starring Iko Uwais, Yahya Nuruhian, and Joe Taslim. Film's about a young special units officer named Jaka, played by the leading man Iko Uwais, who is assigned to with a special force to bring down a drug lord and his operation, which is a tower block. But once they go in there, they realize that they're not the ones hunting; they're the ones being hunted. Whereas each floor entails of people armed to the teeth with guns, machetes, knives, baseball bats, and whatnot. And as many officers die, the survivors, including Jaka, are fighting for their lives in order to actually break free and bring the bad guys to justice, whilst at the same time Jacka is trying to kind of like find his missing brother who was also part of the organization. Well, can I say this film itself came out of nowhere. I mean, Gareth Evans had actually done the film Marantau, or released as Marantau Warrior, some years before, which was kind of like again, another surprise movie that nobody knew about. But then when The Raid came out, it was just kind of a huge, international kind of like sensation, because people had kind of like given up their hopes on seeing any really kind of like really good R-rated bloody action movie. But then when this came out, it was just absolutely like wow. I remember going to see this with with a friend or two by accident, because I saw that the reviews that this film had got were great. I'd seen the trailers, thought this looks incredible. And I can't remember which movie it was that I was meant to watch. Was it The Avengers, like the first one, but we missed the showing? And we saw that this was on. Instead of waiting around for another one, I thought, let's just go watch this movie instead. And I told my friend, I said, listen, he wasn't really too big on like martial arts movies. And I said to him, listen, trust me, you're going to love this movie. It's a really great action movie. And after the film was over, he would not stop talking about this movie for over a week, just saying how great it was. And it kind of infuses a lot of elements. It's got like great kind of like the atmospheric feel of like a slasher movie or a horror. There's a lot of tension. And then there's this great, incredible martial arts choreography use of Pencak Silat, which was choreographed by the star Iko Uwais, and also the antagonist of the movie, Yahya Ruhian, who plays a character named Mad Dog, who's like a gang enforcer. And you see some just really great action set pieces throughout the whole film. And the fact that this film was made for $1 million, it just looks absolutely incredible. For a small budget movie, it just looks absolutely enthralling. Now, I mean, the action itself, there's no wire work involved. I mean, the cinematography just kind of like pretty much the camera, you get to actually follow the kind of the choreography fluidly. And even though the camera is moving around, but it just moves around in such a way that you're able to actually see how well the action has actually been shot, and what the choreography kind of like entails, especially some of the shots which are like circular shots, like circular pan shots, and you kind of pulls back for you to see the intricate choreography and like the use of kind of like kicks and punches, and it's really great. It kind of like takes the elements of like Jackie Chan movies, but there's no comedy involved, so there's no kind of like action comedy involved, but the action itself kind of looks very kind of like dangerous and very painful. And it kind of shows that these characters, even though that the heroes of the movie are really strong, are really skilled, but they're still vulnerable, they still can get hurt in these situations. And the fact that, you have this kind of, the protagonist who's just trying to get home, he's trying to find his brother, he's trying to get home to his wife and his wife who's expecting a baby, and, you kind of want him to kind of get home safe. But throughout the film, I mean, again, even I watched it with the music score, which was composed by Mike Shinoda of Linkin Park, and I thought the music score just fit the movie perfect. And some of the highlights of the film, especially being the finale, was where Iko Uwais takes on and his brother take on Yahya Ruhian's Mad Dog. And you have the drug lab scene where they actually storm. That was done really well. It's a great set piece. And again, the numerous action sequences in like these corridors of this tower block breaking into apartments and such. It's just absolute carnage. And I would say definitely one of these standout action films. I would say hands down the best action movie of the last decade. And there's nothing that's kind of like come out that can kind of hold up against The Raid. Nothing kind of holds up. Number 11 is The Raid 2, directed by Gareth Evans once again, another Indonesian movie starring Iko Uwais, Yahya Ruhian and Julia Stahl and many others. Now this film takes place literally just after the events of what happens in the raid, where you see that his brother, Jacka's brother is killed by the people in charge of the drug running organization, the gangs, and Jacka is this time round involved into prison as an undercover to infiltrate the larger gangs and to bring them down. And in this time you see him kind of like being isolated from his family, and then also being caught in the midst of a power struggle where the son of a powerful gangster wants to take his place, wants to usurp the throne to the criminal organization. And in this time you meet all these different characters, and the fact that there's also another undercover cop who's kind of like caught in the midst of all this. You see how Jacka gains the trust of the criminal fraternity. You see that there's a Japanese gang that's kind of like wanting to take over, but at the same time you see that there's a lot of kind of like backstabbing and a lot of betrayal taking place within the Indonesian gangs themselves. And what makes for is a enthralling, thrilling crime thriller again, and this just has really great action sequences throughout. Now, this was actually the original idea that Gareth Evans had thought of before coming up with The Raid. He wanted to make this film, this was supposed to have been The Raid, whereas an undercover cop goes to prison to bring down a drug organization. But because of the use of like car stunts, a prison riot, and numerous big set pieces, they couldn't get the budget. So he made The Raid and thought, might as well expand the story by including, by starting it off something small, then kind of move, which is the first Raid, and then just moving it into a different setting. So this kind of feels like a much more grander epic in terms of like the storytelling. I mean, it's a lot more complex and a lot more kind of detailed in comparison to the first Raid, and the action's a hell of a lot more bigger. I would say the fight sequences again are absolutely brilliant. You get to see a bloody prison riot that makes the Fast and Furious 8 look like that prison riot look like something on daytime television. I mean, this is just full-blooded, bloody, faces being ripped apart, bones being broken, blood splatting everywhere, and like just some absolutely carnage in terms of like fight choreography. You get like some great shootouts. You get like fight scenes happening in the midst of like in the midst of like a speeding car, and like brilliant car chases. And even showdowns in like nightclubs and restaurants, in the kitchen, especially Iko Uwais's on-screen fight with Sesek Rahman, who with Yahya Nurian, who also featured in John Wick 3 at the end, fighting Keanu Reeves. But this fight in the kitchen was absolutely amazing. I mean, what really captured it was the use of the camera, these long takes of the camera moving around, in circles, in circular pan shots, and then also you kind of getting to see the action where it pulled back. I mean, it starts off where the kitchen floor is completely white, and at the end of the fight, you just see kind of splattered red in blood, and it's just like, it's so amazing. I mean, the use of music in this film again was brilliant. And you got kind of like these characters that kind of like get involved, like Julie Stell's Hammer Girl, and her brother played I can't remember the guy's name, but her brother, played by who kind of just clobbers people to death with with a baseball bat, and it's just absolutely incredible introductory fight scene on an actual on a moving train. It's just full on carnage, and I would say this is like very few times where I would say the sequel outdone everything that the original did. It kind of took what the original had already done, but then just maxing it out to 1,000. And I thought this was just absolutely thrilling. Everyone, I remember when I'm going to see not so filled action movie, because I think I remember coming back from Spain, then I went to watch this movie in the cinemas, and it was only a bunch of people, but everyone was just glued to the screen, cheering on the fight scenes and thinking that, wow, this is just not like anything else we've ever seen before, and this is something that we'd love to have seen more of. And definitely, I would say, I mean, we need more movies like this being made. I mean, there is an audience and we all love it. That was movies 15 to 11. Again, follow me on Instagram and check out my other videos, and I will definitely see you on the next one.